Every family has secrets, but some are darker than others. In this Savage Endings compilation, blood doesn't mean loyalty. Brothers lie, sisters mock, and spouses hide lives you never saw coming. These are the stories that tore families apart and revealed what people are really capable of. This is Family Secrets that blew everything up.
They say blood is thicker than water. But trust? Trust is thinner than a lie. And my brother? Dylan was drowning in them. I stood there in the middle of our parents' living room, watching him spin another perfect little story. Fake tears. Fake regret. Fake everything. And this time, the story was about me. Blaming me. For everything. Money that went missing. Deadlines that were missed. Mistakes that didn't have my name anywhere near them. But somehow, in Dylan's world, all roads led back to Alyssa. I didn't argue. Didn't interrupt. Didn't defend myself. Because here's the thing about liars like Dylan. You don't have to expose them. They do it themselves. You just have to wait long enough. Let them keep talking. Keep digging. Until they bury themselves in so much fiction they can't tell the difference anymore. And when that moment comes, when the lies stop working, when the mask finally cracks, that's when you move. Silent. Clean. Final. Because funny thing about digging your own grave? Nobody needs to push you in. You'll jump in all by yourself. All it takes? Proof. Receipts. And a sister who stopped playing nice a long time ago. My name's Alyssa. Oldest child. Professional peacekeeper. If there was a family role I was born into, it was responsibility. I was the planner. The fixer. The one who kept everyone else from falling apart. Especially Dylan. My little brother. The golden boy. Mom's favorite. Dad's pride. Everybody's fun, charming, slightly reckless little star. And me. I was the reliable one. Steady. Predictable. Invisible. Unless something went wrong. Then suddenly, it was my fault. Growing up, Dylan could do no wrong. Forgot to pay a bill? Alyssa, why didn't you remind him? Lost his job? Alyssa, help him get back on his feet. Broke our parents' trust again? Alyssa, go talk to him. You're the only one he listens to. Spoiler alert, he didn't listen. Not to me. Not to anyone. Because Dylan didn't need to fix anything. Not when mom and dad treated his screw-ups like minor detours. Boys will be boys. He just needs time. Time. Dylan didn't need time. He needed accountability. But nobody wanted to give it to him. So guess who got to hold the line? Me. Always me. And for years I took it. Kept the peace. Cleaned up his messes. Covered for him more times than I can count. Until he made the mistake of making me the mess. Until he crossed a line even I couldn't ignore. See, it's one thing to lie to our parents. To fake your way through life like you're bulletproof. But when Dylan decided to blame me for money he stole, that wasn't just betrayal. That was war. But not the loud kind. Not the screaming, ugly family dinner kind. No. Dylan wanted a story. Cool. I'd let him tell it. All of it. Right up until he buried himself in lies so deep, I didn't have to say a word. All I had to do, show the truth. And stand back. While he dug his own grave. Looking back now, it's almost laughable how hard I tried to protect Dylan. Not because he earned it, but because for so long, I thought that's what family meant. Protecting each other. Covering each other. Believing the best. Even when they gave you every reason not to. Dylan wasn't always like this. Or maybe he was. Maybe I just refused to see it. Growing up, we were close. Shared a bathroom. Shared secrets. Shared late-night talks about how annoying our parents could be. I used to drive him to school every morning. Made sure he had lunch money when he forgot. Helped him pass math when he almost failed. He used to joke I was like his second mom. What I didn't realize, he meant it literally. Because as we got older, that's exactly how he treated me. I helped him get his first apartment. Put in a good word for him at my old job. Even spotted him rent a couple of times when he was between checks. Always temporary. Always just this once. Until it wasn't. Until it became the norm. Until helping him stopped feeling like love. And started feeling like obligation. But I didn't complain. Not really. Because that's what family does, right? Until Dylan started changing. Lying more. Dodging responsibility like it was a full-time job. Telling our parents just enough truth to sound believable. But leaving out everything else. Little things at first. Like claiming he lost a paycheck in the mail when he really spent it on a last-minute Vegas trip. Or telling mom his car needed repairs when he'd blown the money on sneakers. Annoying? Yes. Surprising? No. But manageable. Until he came for me. Until I became the story. Dylan blaming me? That was a new level of disrespect. He didn't just throw me under the bus. He backed over me twice for good measure. Claimed I borrowed money from our parents' account. That I forgot to pay bills I was never even responsible for. Told them I was bad with money. Me, Alyssa, the walking calculator, the family accountant, the person who saved every receipt, every pay stub, every bank statement. If Dylan wanted war? Cool. But he should have remembered one thing. The person keeping all the receipts always wins. At first, I didn't want to believe it. I mean, Dylan lied. Everybody knew that. He bent the truth the way some people bend straws, casually, effortlessly, all the time. But lie about me? That was new. And I almost missed it. Almost. It started with Mom calling me out of nowhere. Hey honey, is everything okay with your account? I blinked. What account? She hesitated. You know, the joint emergency fund you and Dylan set up with us? Record scratch. Excuse me? Joint. Emergency. Fund. Since when? I never agreed to that. Never signed for that. Never touched that. But apparently, Dylan had told them I was helping manage it. Helping him make payments. Helping him budget. Accept the account? Overdraft. Fees stacking. Missing money. All of it quietly swept under my name because Dylan said so. That was red flag number 1. Red flag number 2? Dad called me a week later. Alyssa, you said you were going to help Dylan catch up on his car insurance, right? What? No. Never. Turns out Dylan told him I offered. Said I'd Venmo him later. Spoiler alert, I didn't. But red flag number 3? That's the one that flipped the switch for me. Came straight from Dylan's mouth. We were sitting at Sunday dinner. Normal. Until Mom casually asked, "Did you guys figure out the $600 missing from the bill account?" Before I could even open my mouth, Dylan laughed. Yeah, Alyssa said she needed it for some work thing. She was going to pay it back this week. Work thing. $600. Gone. And just like that, my blood went cold. That was my breaking point. Not just because it was a lie, but because Dylan didn't even flinch when he said it. Didn't look nervous. Didn't look guilty. He expected me to sit there and take it. Cover for him. Save his skin. Again. But me? I was done saving him. Done being the quiet sister cleaning up his messes. Dylan wanted to tell stories? Cool. He could tell all the stories he wanted. Because I wasn't going to interrupt. I was going to let him keep talking. Keep digging. And when he was done, I'd be waiting. With proof. With receipts. With the truth. The thing about liars like Dylan? Once they think they've gotten away with it, they get bold. Real bold. And Dylan was feeling invincible. I stopped arguing with him. Stopped correcting the lies in front of our parents. Stopped defending myself. Not because I gave up, but because I was busy doing what people like me do best. Documenting. Watching. Waiting. The deeper I dug, the uglier it got. Turns out Dylan wasn't just telling lies at Sunday dinner. He was running a full-time smear campaign with me as the main character. To our parents. To extended family. Even to family friends. Telling everyone I was bad with money. Always asking him for help. Irresponsible behind the scenes. Acting like I had it all together, but secretly drowning. And the worst, he told them I'd borrowed money from him that I refused to pay back. Me, the girl with color-coded spreadsheets for fun. Borrow from Dylan? The same man who once asked me how overdraft fees worked mid-crisis? Please. I went quiet. Smiled through dinners. Played it cool. But behind the scenes, I built a folder. Literal and digital. Screenshots of every bank transaction from the past year. Venmo history. Text receipts proving he'd begged me for money, not the other way around. Copies of every payment I'd made for him. Lease agreements I'd co-signed for his broke behind that he defaulted on. But I wasn't just building this for my parents. No, this was for Dylan. For that perfect little moment I knew was coming. When he'd sit there, in our parents' living room, spin one lie too many. And I'd finally slide that folder across the table like a lawyer dropping evidence in court. Quiet. Deadly. Undeniable. Because loud liars talk themselves into holes. Smart sisters? We just wait until the hole is deep enough. And then we bury them. With facts. With proof. With absolute silence. The crazy part? I probably could have stopped Dylan early. Pulled him aside. Threatened him. Laid everything out. But where's the fun in that? Where's the lesson? Because guys like Dylan don't learn from being warned. They only learn from impact. From exposure. From consequences. And Dylan? He was building his own downfall beautifully. Every week. A new lie. Every conversation. A new victim. He told my aunt I was behind on my rent. Funny. I own my condo. He told my uncle I'd maxed out my credit cards. Hilarious. My balances were basically zero. He told my mom I'd lost my job and was too embarrassed to tell anyone. Meanwhile, I was literally sitting at my desk working remote while she texted me that nonsense. But the lie that really sealed it? He told our dad I'd borrowed money to cover a secret vacation I took. A vacation? Me, the girl who hadn't left the state in months because I was helping pay his late car insurance bill. I almost had to respect the creativity. Almost. But the more he talked, the deeper the hole got. And the best part? He was leaving a digital trail longer than a CVS receipt. Every Venmo request. Every text asking for a quick loan. Every promise to pay me back next week. That obviously never happened. All documented. All saved. All time-stamped. Meanwhile, I started talking to my parents. Carefully. Gently. Not defensive. Not argumentative. Just planting seeds. Mom, how's Dylan doing on his car payments these days? Dad, didn't Dylan say he paid off that bill? Weird, I just got another notice addressed to me. Little things. Letting them wonder. Letting them think. Because soon, Dylan wasn't going to need my help ruining himself. He was doing that just fine on his own. And me, I was going to be right there. Quiet. Calm. Proof in hand. Watching him talk himself straight into disaster. Everybody has a moment where they're just done. For me, that moment came on a random Tuesday night. Group family dinner. Nothing fancy. Dad grilled. Mom made her famous potato salad. Dylan showed up late, like always, all fake charm and extra loud energy. I already knew he was gearing up for something. People like him? They can't resist the spotlight. And sure enough, mid-dinner, right between his third burger and a story nobody asked for, he dropped it. Oh, and by the way, he glanced right at me. Alyssa's been struggling with money lately. I've been helping her out when I can, of course. Complete silence. Dad raised an eyebrow. Mom gave me that soft, is everything okay? Look. And Dylan? Sat there. Smirking. Playing the humble hero. The provider. The selfless little brother saving his poor struggling sister from financial ruin. That was it. That was my breaking point. Not because of the lie. I expected the lie. But because he sat there. In front of our parents. Comfortable. Confident. Knowing he was full of it. Knowing he was framing me. And thinking I was too polite, too loyal, to fight back. He was right. About the first part. Not about the second. I went home that night and finalized the folder. Everything. Color-coded tabs. Labeled transactions. Screenshots. Text receipts. Bank records. My dad's missing money? Direct deposit to Dylan's own account. Bills Dylan said I forgot to pay? Literally in my name, and every payment made by me. Fake loans he lent me? Didn't exist. My text history told a completely different story. Then I printed it all. Stapled it. Packed it into a clean black folder like I was walking into court. Because I kind of was. Family court. Kitchen table edition. And I waited. Waited for the next family gathering. Waited for Dylan to start talking again. Waited for him to feel just comfortable enough. To dig that grave one final inch deeper. Funny thing about clarity? Once you have it, everything else gets real quiet. No more second-guessing. No more frustration. No more maybe I'm overreacting. Nah, I was done. Done cleaning up after Dylan. Done keeping the peace. Done saving someone who would throw me under the bus without blinking. The next Sunday dinner? I showed up early. Sat at the table like nothing was coming. Cool. Calm. Patient. Mom was setting out the plates. Dad was watching the game. Dylan rolled in late, again. Big grin. Fake charm. Same routine. But this time, he wasn't the only one playing a role. I'd rehearsed this moment in my head 1,000 times. Not with yelling. Not with drama. But with facts. Receipts. Silence that cut deeper than any argument ever could. And right on cue, Dylan started running his mouth. Man, things have been tight lately. But you know me, gotta help family. Can't leave Alyssa hanging. He even chuckled like he was humble about it. Mom sighed. Dad looked uncomfortable. Both of them turning their eyes toward me. Waiting. Hoping I wouldn't make a scene. Poor, struggling, helpless Alyssa. Bless Dylan's heart for being so generous, right? Except this time, I reached down, pulled the black folder from my bag, and slid it across the table. No words. No emotion. Just placed it there like a bomb waiting to go off. Thought you guys might want to see the full story. Simple. Final. Dead quiet. Dylan's face? Priceless. Absolute stillness. Because liars love control. Love spinning the story. But paperwork? Proof? That's the one language they can't argue with. Mom opened the folder first. Dad leaned in. And within seconds, everything changed. Flipping through receipts. Bank statements. Venmo history. My name clean. His name dirty. Every lie exposed. Every fake story dead on arrival. I didn't need to raise my voice. Didn't need to argue. Didn't need to defend myself. Dylan had already talked himself straight into the hole. All I did, handed them the shovel. The living room was dead silent. Mom's hands were shaking as she flipped through the folder. Dad's jaw was clenched so tight I could hear his teeth grinding. And Dylan? Dylan wasn't laughing anymore. He wasn't talking. Wasn't smirking. He looked like a man watching his whole fake little world cave in slow motion. Because it was. Every lie. Every story. Every fake little narrative he'd built over the past year. Gone. Undone by a folder full of boring, black and white truth. Bank records. Screenshots. Payment receipts. His Venmo requests with his words right there in blue and gray bubbles. Can you spot me rent this month? Hey, can you cover me real quick? I'll pay you back Friday, swear. Spoiler alert? He never paid me back. Dad's voice was like ice when he finally spoke. Dylan, care to explain this? And Dylan, the man who always had a comeback, always had a story, said absolutely nothing. Nothing clever. Nothing cute. Just. It's not what it looks like. Classic. Oldest line in the liar's handbook. Dad raised an eyebrow. Looks like theft to me. Mom looked heartbroken. Not angry. Not yelling. Just. Devastated. And somehow, that hurt worse than anything. Because Dylan didn't just steal money. He stole trust. Stole peace. Stole the benefit of the doubt from the two people who gave him chance after chance after chance. I sat there completely still. Didn't gloat. Didn't brag. Didn't rub it in. Because this wasn't for revenge. This was for closure. For clarity. For me. And for Dylan, this was checkmate. Because now, it didn't matter how good he lied. Didn't matter how fast he talked. His game was over. Exposed. Finished. All that was left was the fallout. The thing about liars like Dylan, they're loud until they're caught. And when they're caught, they get real quiet. Real fast. He sat there like a deer in headlights. Frozen. Cornered. Completely exposed. Because there was nothing left to say. Not when every fake story he told had a paper trail running straight back to him. Every loan he claimed he gave me? Non-existent. Every bill he said I forgot to pay? Paid in full by me. Every account he claimed we shared? Opened and controlled entirely by him. It was surgical. Clean. Devastating. Dad didn't yell. He didn't have to. That disappointed dad energy hits harder than any shout ever could. You're not just irresponsible, he said quietly. You're a liar. Mom. She looked like she didn't even recognize him. All this time, you let us believe Alyssa was struggling. She shook her head like she could shake off the betrayal. But it clung to the walls like smoke. Permanent. Lingering. Heavy. And me. I sat there. Calm. Still. Unbothered. Because I'd already won. Without yelling. Without crying. Without lowering myself to his level. I let him talk. I let him dig. And then I let the truth bury him alive. Dad told Dylan to leave. Right then. Right there. No more dinners. No more fake apologies. No more access to the family account. No more rescues. Dylan packed up that night, tail between his legs, and left without a word. Not to me. Not to them. Just silence. The same silence I'd given him while he built lie after lie. The same silence that spoke louder than any fight ever could. Funny how quiet things get when the liar runs out of stories. Funny how heavy the truth feels when it lands. Funny how peaceful it is when you stop saving people from their own mess. Life got real quiet after Dylan left. Not awkward quiet. Not tense quiet. Peaceful quiet. The kind of quiet that lets you breathe again. The kind of quiet you never realize you were missing until it's finally back. Mom apologized to me more times than I could count. She cried. Hugged me tight like I was going to disappear next. I'm so sorry, Alyssa. I should have trusted you. I wasn't mad at her. Not really. Because parents want to believe the best in their kids. That's human. But after that night, nobody questioned me again. Not about money. Not about responsibility. Not about Dylan. My word was law now. Because receipts don't lie. And neither did I. Dad was quieter about it, old school pride and disappointment clashing in his chest. But he pulled me aside before I left that night. Simple words. Heavy meaning. I'm proud of how you handled this. That meant more than anything. As for Dylan, word got around fast. Family talks. Always has. Always will. Suddenly those friends he loved bragging to stopped answering his calls. Family events? He stopped showing up. Not because he wasn't invited, but because shame travels faster than text messages. Especially when everyone knows exactly what you did. Especially when you built the lie. And someone else had the courage to tell the truth. He sent me one text weeks later. Just 3 words. You ruined me. I didn't even respond. Because I didn't ruin him. He ruined himself. I just stopped protecting him from the consequences. Me. I went back to my life. My peaceful, boring, beautiful life. No drama. No lies. No fake stories. Just me. Doing what I've always done. Showing up. Standing tall. And never, ever, apologizing for protecting my peace again. Funny thing about graves? Nobody digs them faster than a liar. Nobody falls in harder than someone who swears they're untouchable. And nobody walks away cleaner than the sister who finally stopped saving them. They say family means nobody gets left behind. But sometimes, leaving someone behind is the only way to survive them. Dylan thought being my brother meant I'd cover for him forever. That I'd keep saving him. Keep lying with him. Keep cleaning up after him. He thought my silence meant weakness. That my patience meant permission. But me? I wasn't being silent to protect him. I was being silent to watch him bury himself. Because the truth about people like Dylan? You don't have to fight them. You just have to wait. They dig their own graves. One lie at a time. One fake story at a time. One stolen dollar at a time. And when the ground finally gives out beneath them, you won't have to lift a finger. You just stand there. Calm. Collected. Proof in hand. And watch it all collapse. Dylan didn't lose because I ruined him. Dylan lost because I stopped saving him. I let the truth speak for me. I let the receipts do all the talking. And now, my life is quiet. My peace is loud. And my silence was the loudest lesson he'll ever learn. Because when you lie long enough, when you betray the one person who always had your back, there's only one thing left to say. Enjoy the grave you dug, Dylan. Hope it was worth it. You know what's wild? Finding out your husband's deepest, dirtiest secret. Not through snooping. Not through some dramatic phone check. But during game night. In front of all your friends. One question. One stupid little card drawn from a box. And just like that, his whole world shattered. Right there at the kitchen table. Surrounded by snacks. Laughter still hanging in the air. Until it wasn't. Until everything went dead quiet. Brandon thought he was smart. Thought he was careful. Thought he could juggle 2 lives, husband at home, something else in the dark. But the thing about secrets? They never stay buried forever. Especially not when fate decides to embarrass you publicly. Especially not when your wife already suspects you're not nearly as perfect as you act. And me? I didn't yell. Didn't cry. Didn't blow up the table like a bad reality show. Nah. I smiled. Sat back. Watched him stutter. Watched him break. Because sometimes, the best revenge isn't catching someone red-handed in private. It's letting them expose themselves. In front of everyone they care about. Game night was supposed to be fun. Instead, it became the night Brandon lost everything. Including me. My name's Rachel. Marketing manager. Wife. Hostess of way too many game nights. I wasn't wild. Wasn't messy. If I had a brand, it was predictable. Stable. Reliable. That's exactly how I liked my life. Clean. Comfortable. Simple. Brandon and I had been married for 4 years. Met in college. Married young. Not because we rushed, but because it felt easy. Natural. Effortless. He was the kind of guy people loved. Charming. Smart. Quick with a joke. Quiet confidence without being cocky. Brandon was the golden boy of our friend group. The safe guy. The good guy. Everyone loved Brandon. And for a long time, so did I. Our life was painfully normal. Saturday morning farmers markets. Sunday Netflix marathons. Friends over at least twice a month. And game night? That was our thing. We hosted it religiously. Card games. Trivia. Charades. Uno if people were feeling petty. It was simple. Safe. Family. But what nobody tells you is, sometimes, simple hides secrets better than anything. It's not the dramatic guys you have to watch. It's the quiet ones. The consistent ones. The ones who make you feel crazy for noticing small things. Like how his phone suddenly never left his pocket. How he'd work late, but come home smelling like a bar. How his passwords changed without warning. Little things. Not enough to accuse. But just enough to wonder. Still, I stayed in my lane. Gave him the benefit of the doubt. Told myself I was overthinking. Until that game night. Until that question. Until the whole thing, our marriage, our friends, his perfect little image, went up in flames. From one stupid card. Pulled from a box. Played like a joke. Answered like a confession. In front of everyone. And once I knew. Once I saw the look in his eyes. It was already over. Brandon didn't lose because I caught him. Brandon lost. Because he caught himself. Looking back now, I almost laugh at how good I thought I had it. We were that couple. The wow, y'all really have it together couple. Friends would come over and compliment everything. Your place is so cute. You two are goals. I want what y'all have. And me. I believed it. We weren't rich. We weren't flashy. But we were solid. Or so I thought. Our routine was everything. We meal prepped together on Sundays. We had date nights every other Friday like clockwork. Little things that made life feel safe. Predictable. Even sweet. Brandon was thoughtful. Always remembered the little things. My favorite candy. How I liked my coffee. Inside jokes nobody else would understand. He texted me good morning and drive safe like it was religion. What I didn't realize. Routine is the perfect cover. Consistency makes you stop asking questions. Comfort makes you stop looking for cracks. And love makes you stupid. Game night was my favorite part of the month. Brandon made it fun. He was always in charge of music. He had this dumb little playlist labeled Chaotic Vibes Only that our friends loved. We'd laugh until midnight, talk trash over Uno cards, turn our living room into the safest space in the world. It was easy. Home. Family. So when things started feeling off, I brushed it away. Because that's what love makes you do. Dumb little things. His mood shifts. The mysterious new passwords. Work dinners that popped up out of nowhere. One time I woke up at 2 a.m. and his car was gone. Said he needed to clear his head. I told myself every excuse in the book. He's tired. He's stressed. We've been busy. What I didn't know was that Brandon wasn't just tired. He wasn't just stressed. He wasn't busy with work. He was busy living a double life. Hiding secrets. Wearing his perfect husband mask. And me. I was too busy being the good wife to notice. Until game night. Until one stupid question. Changed everything. The first red flag? It wasn't obvious. It never is. It was quiet. Subtle. Polite. Just like Brandon. It started with his phone. Brandon used to leave that thing everywhere. On the counter. On the couch. Unlocked. Untouched. But lately, it might as well have been glued to his body. Bathroom? Phone. Shower? Phone. Outside to take a quick call? Phone. And if I happen to glance at it? Lock screen. New password. Notifications silenced. Cute. Then it was the schedule changes. Last-minute meetings. Late-night projects. Weekend errands that didn't need company. And when I'd casually offer to tag along. Instant resistance. Nah, babe, it's boring stuff. I'll be back quick. But somehow quick turned into hours. Every time. One night he came home smelling like cologne that wasn't his. Not mine either. Different. Expensive. Not the usual stuff I bought him for Christmas. When I asked, he laughed. Oh, must have been the new air freshener in the Uber. Sure. Because Uber's out here handing out Tom Ford samples like candy. But the worst red flag? That gut feeling. The way his energy changed. The distance. Like someone who was halfway out the door before I even realized the door was open. And me. Still playing perfect wife. Still planning game night. Still cooking dinner for a man who couldn't even look me in the eye without blinking twice. But here's the thing about me. I'm patient. I don't blow up without proof. I don't move without reason. Brandon thought he was good. Careful. Untouchable. But secrets have a funny way of slipping out. Especially when you get comfortable. Especially when you think you've already won. So I waited. Watched. Let him move exactly how he wanted. Because real betrayal doesn't need to be forced into the light. It always finds its way there. And for Brandon, that light was coming. From a game card. From one stupid question. From the one place he never thought he'd lose control. Right in our own living room. In front of everyone. Brandon must have thought he was slick. Because the lies? They got bigger. Sloppier. Almost lazy. Like he stopped caring if I noticed. And honestly, that told me everything I needed to know. One night he told me he was working late. Classic. Except our friend Sean posted an Instagram story at a rooftop bar. Guess who was in the background? Brandon. Not working. Not taking calls. Laughing. Relaxed. Drinking with some co-worker I'd never seen before and definitely didn't look like someone from accounting. Another night, he came home wearing a hoodie I'd never seen. Wrong size. Wrong vibe. Smelled like perfume. When I asked, he shrugged. Oh, must have grabbed someone else's by mistake at the gym. Yeah, because random dudes at the gym are just trading hoodies like Pokemon cards now. Make it make sense. But I didn't say a word. Not yet. Because people like Brandon, they think silence means submission. They think staying calm means you believe them. But me, I was waiting, observing, setting the stage. Game night was already on the calendar. Our friends were coming over. Sean, Bree, Cameron, Jade, the whole crew. Cards ready. Wine stocked. Snacks loaded. And I had a feeling. If Brandon was going to get caught, it was going to happen here. Where he was comfortable. Where his mask stayed on autopilot. Where one slip, one question, one wrong answer could tear the whole thing down. And then I saw it. The game. A gift from Sean. Some new card deck designed to stir up wild conversations. Spill or sip, brutal little questions you either answer honestly or take a drink. People loved it. I didn't think much of it at first. But then, I peeked at the cards. One in particular hit like a freight train. Have you ever cheated in a relationship? Simple. Direct. Merciless. Right then I knew. I didn't need to dig anymore. I didn't need to snoop. I just needed him to pull that card. And fate. Fate loves a good show. Game night rolled around like any other night. Smiles. Music. Wine. People dropping inside jokes while kicking their shoes off at the door. Brandon? Cool as ever. Laughing. Charming. Pouring drinks like he didn't have a second life running in the background. The living room was packed. Sean. Bree. Cameron. Jade. All of them stretched out across the couch and floor like this was just another fun night at the Morris house. Except me? I was sitting there quiet, calm, watching, waiting, because people like Brandon, they talk too much when they feel safe. They let their guard down when they think they own the room. And that night, Brandon was real comfortable. It started innocent enough. Cards flying, wild stories, questions like, who here's had a secret crush on someone in the room? What's your worst first date ever? We laughed. We joked. But me? I wasn't laughing for fun. I was watching the pile shrink. Waiting for that card. The one I'd seen days ago. The one I knew could blow the lid off everything. And wouldn't you know it? Right when Brandon reached over. Right when the vibe was perfect. He pulled it. Like fate placed it there personally. Have you ever cheated in a relationship? Boom. The table erupted in fake groans and uhas. Jade laughed. OMG, that's brutal. Cameron shook his head. Dang, Brandon, you got unlucky, bro. But me? I just stared at him. Steady. Quiet. Not smiling. Not flinching. Waiting. Watching. Because this wasn't just a fun question. This was the question. The moment I'd been waiting for. And Brandon? Oh, Brandon froze for just a second. Barely noticeable. Unless you were watching closely. Unless you already knew. And me? I knew. He forced a laugh. Nah, man. Never. Said it smooth. Confident. But I saw the micro-expression flash across his face. Guilt. Fear. Fake calm cracking at the edges. And that tiny second of hesitation? That little stutter in his usually perfect delivery? That told me everything I needed. The real game was about to start. And Brandon? Brandon just lost. I'll never forget the look on Brandon's face. That fraction of a second. That tiny pause. Like his brain glitched. Like all the lies he'd stacked so neatly. Suddenly didn't know where to go. Most people at the table didn't notice. Not Bree. Not Cameron. Not Jade. They were still laughing. Still teasing. Still caught up in game night energy. But me? I saw it. I felt it. Brandon's lie didn't hit the air like truth. It hung there. Heavy. Unnatural. Forced. But I didn't say a word. Not then. Not yet. Because smart people know. Exposing a liar isn't about what you say. It's about when you say it. Timing is everything. So I let the game roll on. But I watched him closer. Watched the way his laugh changed. Tighter. Nervous. Watched the way he refilled his drink faster than usual. Watched the way his knees started bouncing under the table like his whole body was trying to burn off nervous energy. That was all I needed. Confirmation. Proof isn't always a screenshot. Sometimes, proof is behavior. How people react when they think they've gotten away with everything. After game night ended, our friends filed out like normal. Still laughing. Still clueless. They hugged us goodbye at the door. Called us couple goals. Told us they couldn't wait for next month. But me? I was done waiting. The second the door shut, the vibe in the house changed. Thick. Uncomfortable. Brandon tried to act normal. Fun night, huh? I just stared at him. Didn't move. Didn't blink. Funny card you pulled. He laughed, weak. Yeah, that was wild. Pause. Silence. Then me quiet, sharp, clean. Tell me the truth, Brandon. No game voice. No smile. No cushion. Just straight. Deadly. Honest. And him? His eyes did that same glitch. That same panic. Right before he said the dumbest thing possible. About what? And just like that. Game over. Because liars don't ask about what. Unless they have something to hide. About what? 5 words. That's all it took. Funny how liars always expose themselves without even realizing it. He could have said, cheating? Girl, please. He could have laughed it off like every other Brandon moment. But no. About what? Translation? You caught me. But how much do you know? That's when I knew for certain. And me? I didn't yell. Didn't cry. Didn't throw things like some cliché reality show meltdown. That would have been too easy for him. It would have given him control. Given him an out. Instead, I went quiet. Dead calm. Dangerous calm. That type of stillness that makes guilty people squirm harder than any screaming ever could. I just stood there, looking at a man I clearly didn't know at all. Watching him fidget. Watching him scramble for words. Watching him reach for charm that wasn't going to save him tonight. Rachel. Come on, what's going on? I tilted my head. You tell me. Let him sweat. Let him twist. Let him feel everything I'd felt for the past few months while he gaslighted me to my face. While he came home late smelling like new cologne. While he suddenly guarded his phone like it was the launch codes. While he made me question my own instincts. Not anymore. Tonight, I was done questioning. Done doubting. Done saving face for a man who clearly thought I was stupid. No raised voice. No big speech. Just 5 words. Tell me who she is. Flat. Direct. Unbothered. And Brandon? Dead silent. Guilty all over his face. Because he had an answer. I could see it. Feel it. Taste it in the room. But saying her name out loud? Saying it to me? That would make it real. And real was the one thing Brandon clearly wasn't ready for. But me? I was. Ready for real. Ready for the end. Ready for him to lose the one thing he clearly thought he'd never have to lose. Me. Brandon didn't answer me right away. Of course he didn't. He sat there frozen, running every bad option through that manipulator brain of his. Lie. Deny. Flip it on me? None of it was gonna work. Not tonight. Not anymore. I sat down across from him like this was just another casual conversation. Except it wasn't. This was court. Kitchen table edition. And I was both judge and jury. You've got one chance to tell me the truth, I said, voice flat. After tonight? I won't ask again. That's what did it. That's when he cracked. Brandon's voice was barely above a whisper. It didn't mean anything. Classic. Absolutely textbook. Cheating 101. Deny the feelings. Deny the meaning. Deny the damage. Who is she? Silence. How long? More silence. That pause. That hesitation? That was all the answer I needed. Long enough. Too long. Long enough for him to build a fake life while sleeping next to me at night. But still, no yelling from me. No tears. No begging. Just facts. Just power. Just me standing all the way in my peace. Cool, I said, simply standing up. We're done. Brandon's head snapped up. Panicked. Wait, Rachel, let's talk about this. No. That was the first real no I'd given him in months. And it felt like peace. Real, deep, soul-clearing peace. Because I wasn't staying up arguing with a man who risked everything for nothing. I wasn't playing tug-of-war with somebody who already dropped the rope. I wasn't wasting my breath trying to put together pieces of a life he shattered. Nah, I was leaving him exactly where I found him. Alone. But not before I set things in motion. Not before I told him the one thing guaranteed to ruin him faster than any dramatic blow-up. Game night's over, Brandon. Next month, you can explain to everyone why I won't be here. I didn't pack a single bag that night. Didn't slam doors. Didn't throw clothes into a suitcase like some movie scene. That's not how women like me move. Not when we're done. Not when the decision's final. Not when the disrespect is permanent. Instead, I moved quiet. Deliberate. Controlled. I left my wedding ring on the kitchen counter. Dead center. Right next to his stupid card game. Like a reminder. This is the hand you played, Brandon. This is the prize you won. Hope it was worth it. Brandon tried to stop me at the door. Of course he did. Liars love to apologize when there's an audience missing. Rachel. Wait. Please just talk to me. I turned, looked him dead in the face. Talk to who? Because the man standing in front of me? That wasn't my husband. That wasn't my best friend. That wasn't my partner. That was a stranger, wearing my husband's face. This isn't a fight, I told him calmly. Fights are for people still in it. This is me leaving. And Brandon? Couldn't say a single thing that would matter. Because when trust is dead, words are just noise. I walked out. Gets in my hunt. Phone silent. Piece heavy in my chest like armor. And the beautiful part? I didn't need to expose him online. Didn't need a messy post. Didn't need to destroy him publicly. He'd do that all by himself. People notice when a wife like me disappears. People ask questions when game night suddenly becomes boys' night. By default, people feel the energy shift. The absence speaks louder than any rant ever could. And Brandon? He could sit there, in our too quiet house, staring at his perfectly curated life. Now missing its center, missing its calm, missing me. Because I wasn't just leaving him. I was leaving the version of me that tolerated less than I deserved. Forever. I didn't move out in chaos. I moved out in silence. Clean. Surgical. Effortless. The next morning, Brandon texted me like nothing happened. Can we please talk? Left on read. Then he called. Twice. Ignored. Because I wasn't interested in closure from the same man who opened the door to betrayal. Closure came the second I stopped answering. Word got around fast. Not because I told anyone, but because people notice when the most solid woman they know suddenly disappears without warning. Especially from a game night couple like us. Sean texted first. Everything okay with y'all? Then Bree. Then Jade. Then Cameron. I didn't send a long story. Didn't vent. Didn't drag him. I sent the simplest message ever. Ask Brandon. Because it wasn't my mess to explain. It was his. Turns out, he wasn't very good at that part. Brandon had spent so long playing perfect husband. He had no practice being honest. No skills for accountability. And silence? Silence makes people real uncomfortable. Especially liars. Especially when the room is full of people who used to believe in you. Brandon showed up to the next game night alone. Because I didn't. Didn't text anyone. Didn't show up out of habit. Didn't explain myself. And apparently, the second they realized I wasn't there, the questions came hard. Where's Rachel? She okay? Everything cool between y'all? And Brandon? Couldn't lie his way through that moment. Not surrounded by people who knew me. Who saw me. Who knew exactly what it meant for me to be gone. Me. I got my own place. Small. Peaceful. Quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't feel lonely. The kind that feels earned. The kind that wraps around you like safety. Because when you stop explaining yourself to people who betrayed you, that's when the real healing starts. That's when the real power kicks in. People think revenge has to be loud, messy, explosive. Nah, real revenge is quiet. It's walking away without warning. It's disappearing without explanation. It's letting someone sit alone with the version of themselves they worked so hard to hide. Brandon thought game night was just a hobby. Just friends. Just fun. He didn't realize. It was the perfect stage for his own exposure. He didn't lose me because I caught him. He lost me because he couldn't even tell the truth. When all it would have taken was one honest answer. One real moment. 1 ounce of respect. But men like Brandon, they get so used to lying. They forget how loud the truth hits when it finally shows up. Especially in a room full of witnesses. Especially when the question is simple. Have you ever cheated? Funny how the smallest card, the tiniest question, can destroy a whole marriage. Can tear down a perfect little lie. Can change everything. And me, I didn't need to scream. I didn't need to break things. I didn't need to post about it for likes. I just left. With peace. With silence. With every single part of myself he thought I'd stay and fight over. Gone. Untouchable. Unbothered. Because game night ended. And so did I. My sister mocked my infertility. Until I gave her the surprise of a lifetime. I was halfway down the hall balancing a tray of desserts when I heard my name, and my pain, being ripped apart in the next room. Claire? Oh please. My sister Tessa snorted, loud enough for half the family to hear. She's been trying for years. Face it, some women just aren't meant to be mothers. Laughter. Ugly, sharp, mean-spirited laughter. I froze, the tray trembling in my hands. They didn't know I was standing there. They didn't know I could hear every word. And suddenly, the carefully stitched seams of my heart, seams I'd spent years sewing together, ripped open all over again. My name is Claire Bennett. I'm 34 years old. And according to my sister, I'm a joke. It wasn't just the infertility. It was the way she said it. The glee. The cruelty. Like my pain made her feel better about herself. I backed away before they could see me, before they could plaster on their fake smiles and pretend nothing had happened. My hands were shaking so badly, I had to set the tray down on the kitchen counter. Breathe, Claire. Just breathe. I stared at the marble countertop, the expensive desserts I had spent hours preparing, the decorations I had carefully planned for Dad's birthday dinner. None of it mattered anymore. Not if this was how they really saw me. And in that moment, standing there alone, humiliated, furious, I made a decision. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to fight. I was going to win. But not today. Not like this. No, I would make sure Tessa never forgot the day she underestimated me. I wasn't always the infertile sister. Once upon a time, Tessa and I were just two girls running barefoot through the backyard, dreaming up futures bigger than the sky. We both imagined husbands. We both imagined babies. We both imagined happiness. But life had other plans for me. I married Sam at 28, full of hope and love. We talked about children before we even finished unpacking the moving boxes. We wanted them. We planned for them. The first miscarriage came just after our first anniversary. 7 weeks in. Long enough for us to whisper names in the dark. The second came a year later. 10 weeks. We had already bought a crib. After that, the doctors grew quiet when they looked at my charts. Tests. Treatments. More tests. More treatments. My body became a battleground, and hope became something I rationed carefully like medicine. Every month was a new cycle of cautious excitement, rising terror, and shattering disappointment. Meanwhile, Tessa's life unfolded like a glossy magazine spread. She married young, had 3 children in rapid succession, each pregnancy announced with grand gestures and baby shower invitations that I showed up to, smiling through gritted teeth. At first, she was gentle. At first, she would hug me a little longer, her eyes soft with sympathy. But over time, something shifted. Maybe it was resentment. Maybe it was superiority. Or maybe Tessa just liked having a way to feel bigger better. And every passive-aggressive comment, every pitying glance, every, "I'm just being honest," jab was a needle that sunk a little deeper under my skin. I forgave her, over and over. Because that's what you do for family, right? Until one day you realize some wounds don't heal with forgiveness. Some wounds demand justice. And standing there in that kitchen, with the sound of her laughter still ringing in my ears, I finally understood. I had been fighting for a relationship that Tessa never valued. And that meant it was time for me to stop fighting. And start planning. It didn't happen all at once. Tessa's cruelty was a slow drip, a steady leak of poison that most people never noticed. She had a talent for masking insults as jokes, for hiding her claws behind a glittering smile. Like the time she gifted me a world's best dog mom mug at a family Christmas party, winking dramatically as she handed it over. Everyone laughed. I laughed, too. What else was I supposed to do? Or the baby shower she threw for her friend. The one where she seated me at a table labeled, "Maybe someday," in glittery cursive letters. "Oh, relax," she said when she saw my face, tossing her blonde hair over her shoulder. "You know I'm just teasing." And who could forget Thanksgiving 2 years ago when she clinked her glass and toasted, "To fertility, may it favor the deserving." That one still burned in my chest. Even when she wasn't directly targeting me, Tessa made sure I always felt other. The family photos where she squeezed her kids tight and left an empty spot beside me. The conversations about real women and real families where my silence hung heavy in the air. The smug, sympathetic glances exchanged when I politely declined another slice of baby shower cake. Sam noticed. God, he noticed. There were nights when he would find me crying in the shower, trying to wash away the shame. There were mornings when he would pull me close and whisper, "You don't owe anyone an explanation, Claire. You're enough. You always have been." But it's hard to believe you're enough when someone you once trusted keeps holding a mirror to your deepest fears. It's even harder when the rest of the family, polite, conflict-averse, uncomfortable, pretended not to hear, not to see. By the time Dad's birthday dinner rolled around, Tessa had already conditioned everyone to accept her digs as normal. Normal. Acceptable. Not anymore. This time, I wasn't going to swallow my pride and smile through the humiliation. This time, Tessa was going to choke on her own words. It happened just after dessert. The family was still crowded around the dining table, bloated from Dad's favorite German chocolate cake, when Tessa decided the evening needed a little more entertainment. "You know," she said, tapping her wine glass with a butter knife to get everyone's attention, "we should give Claire a round of applause." I stiffened, dreading what was coming. "For what?" Uncle Jim chuckled. "For trying so hard," Tessa purred, grinning. "For being the most determined auntie to be. Someday. Maybe." A few people laughed. Awkward, uneasy laughter. I saw my mother glance away, suddenly fascinated by the gravy boat. My father shifted in his chair, clearing his throat. Sam reached for my hand under the table, but I pulled it back. I didn't want comfort. Not anymore. Tessa wasn't done. "Really, Claire's an inspiration," she said brightly. "She's like a little cactus. All dried up, but still hanging on." The room went silent. Even Tessa seemed to realize she had crossed a line, but it was too late. I sat there, cheeks burning, heart hammering so loud I could barely hear anything else. I could feel every pair of eyes in the room flicker toward me. Pitying, embarrassed, unsure. But not one person spoke up. Not one person called her out. Tessa smirked into her wine glass, pleased with herself. And that's when something inside me snapped, clean and final, like a brittle branch breaking under the weight of too much snow. I smiled. A slow, cold smile that made Sam's eyebrows knit together in concern. Because I wasn't hurt anymore. I wasn't humiliated. I was done. Tessa thought she had won. She had no idea that I had already started building the one thing she thought I would never have. And when I was ready, I wasn't just going to defend myself. I was going to make sure Tessa's cruelty was exposed, for everyone to see. I picked up my fork, calmly twirling a bite of cake, and locked eyes with her across the table. She winked at me. Poor Tessa. She thought this was over. She had no idea it was only just beginning. That night, while everyone was still lingering in the living room, trading small talk and second helpings of pie, I slipped upstairs to the guest room. I needed air. I needed distance. I needed a moment to think. Really think. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring out the window at the darkening sky, and let the anger settle into something sharper. Focused. Cold. I wasn't going to argue with Tessa. I wasn't going to fight for scraps of dignity from people too cowardly to defend me. I was going to take control of my own story. I pulled out my phone, scrolling through my messages until I found the one from our adoption agency. Final meeting confirmed. All paperwork approved. Congratulations, Claire and Sam. I smiled. A real smile this time, small, private, burning in my chest like a secret flame. Sam and I hadn't told anyone yet. Not even our parents. After everything we'd been through, the years of grief, the endless false starts, we had decided to keep this part of our journey close to the vest. Sacred. Safe. We had been matched with a birth mother 3 months ago, a young woman named Brielle, who had made the hardest, bravest choice of her life. And in just a few more weeks, if everything continued to go smoothly, we would bring home our daughter. Our daughter. The word tasted sweet, like honey on my tongue. I locked my phone and tucked it away, the enormity of it all pressing against my ribs, making it hard to breathe, in the best possible way. Tessa thought she had defined me by what I lacked. But she didn't know. She didn't know that love had already found me. That family was already on its way. That the life she said I could never have was already unfolding, beautiful and unstoppable, just beyond her line of sight. And when the time was right, when the papers were signed and the ink was dry, I was going to show her. I was going to show them all. But for now, I smiled into the dark and whispered a promise to the tiny heartbeat growing in someone else's belly. Hold on, baby. Mommy's coming. 2 weeks later, I stood in the kitchen, staring down at a tiny white stick on the counter. Positive. Pregnant. My knees buckled, and I gripped the edge of the sink, heart slamming against my ribs. It wasn't possible. It shouldn't have been possible. We had stopped trying years ago, after the last miscarriage shredded what little hope we had left. Our entire focus had shifted to adoption. Our hearts had already expanded to make room for Brielle's baby. And now this. I sank onto the kitchen floor, wrapping my arms around myself as the tears came. Messy, gasping, uncontrollable. Not sadness. Not fear. Joy. Overwhelming, unimaginable, terrifying joy. Sam found me there a few minutes later, the pregnancy test trembling in my hand. He dropped to his knees beside me, his face wild with confusion. Claire? What's wrong? Are you hurt? I laughed through my tears, shoving the test into his palm. Watched as his mouth opened and closed, stunned, speechless. You're pregnant? he finally whispered, his voice cracking. I nodded. He pulled me into his arms, rocking us both back and forth on the cold tile floor, laughing and crying all at once. We stayed there for a long time, wrapped in each other, the enormity of it washing over us. 2 babies. 2. The daughter we were about to adopt. And now, another heartbeat growing inside me. Life had a funny way of showing up when you least expected it. After all the loss, after all the heartbreak, hope hadn't just tiptoed back into our lives. It had come crashing in, wild and breathtaking and unstoppable. Later that night, when the house was quiet, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. And for the first time in years, I wasn't just dreaming about a family. I was building one, piece by piece, heartbeat by heartbeat. And when the time came, Tessa wouldn't just eat her words. She would choke on them. Because I wasn't just bringing one miracle into this world. I was bringing 2. The temptation to shout it from the rooftops was almost unbearable. Every morning I woke up with my hands on my belly, half in disbelief, half in awe. Every afternoon I caught Sam smiling at me across the dinner table, like we were sharing the most beautiful secret in the world. And we were. 2 beautiful secrets. But we agreed, no one could know. Not yet. It wasn't about superstition. It wasn't about fear. It was about protection. After everything we'd been through, this fragile, blooming happiness felt too sacred to expose to anyone else's opinions, especially Tessa's. So we waited. We went to adoption meetings, finalized paperwork, decorated a nursery. We went to doctor appointments, listened to tiny heartbeats galloping through monitors, held hands until our fingers ached. Every day, the dreams grew louder. Every day, the love grew bigger. And every day, I smiled a little wider when Tessa made her snide little remarks during family group texts or dinner invitations. Don't forget, Claire, you can always babysit my kids if you want the experience. Hope you're not feeling left out. Not everyone's cut out for motherhood. Each time, I would type a polite response, hit send, and laugh to myself. Poor Tessa. So busy congratulating herself. So busy standing on her imaginary pedestal. She had no idea that the ground was already crumbling beneath her feet. Sam and I planned carefully. We decided to hold a family appreciation brunch once everything was official. A chance to thank everyone for their support through tough times. We said. Everyone RSVP'd immediately, eager for another excuse to gather and gossip. Tessa included. She even offered to bring her famous lemon bars. I accepted sweetly, playing my part. Because the stage was set. The trap was baited. And soon, very soon, the woman who had laughed at my grief was going to sit in a room surrounded by undeniable proof that I was everything she said I could never be. A mother. Twice over. And the best part? She wouldn't see it coming. Not until it was too late. The brunch was everything Tessa loved. Charming, polished, Instagram-worthy. Fresh flowers adorned every table. Mimosas flowed freely. The smell of cinnamon rolls and bacon curled through the air, wrapping around the house like a warm hug. Guests buzzed around the living room and kitchen, laughing and chatting, dressed in their weekend best. Tessa arrived 15 minutes late, of course, with a tray of lemon bars and an attitude. Sorry, traffic, she chirped, breezing through the front door like royalty. But don't worry, I'm here now. She kissed Dad on the cheek, barely nodded at Sam, and swept me into a hug that smelled suspiciously of too much perfume. You really pulled it together, Claire, she said brightly, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. I mean, who knew? I smiled sweetly, feeling Sam's reassuring hand settle lightly at the small of my back. Thanks, Tess, I said. We've been working on something really special. Oh, I'm sure, she said, her voice dripping with patronizing warmth. You always do your best. If she noticed the knowing glances exchanged around the room, she didn't show it. She was too busy basking in the glow of her own importance. Perfect. When everyone had their plates piled high and their glasses refilled, Sam clinked his glass gently. If we could all just gather around for a minute, he said. Claire and I have a little announcement. Tessa perked up immediately, eyes glittering. An engagement? A vacation? A new pet? Whatever it was, she was ready to insert herself into the center of it. I cleared my throat, heart hammering with excitement. I just want to say thank you. I began, my voice steady. To all of you. These past few years have been hard, but they've also been filled with love and support from people who matter most. A few people nodded, shifting uncomfortably, maybe remembering how often that support had been silent. And now, I continued, reaching for Sam's hand, we're so excited to share that our family is growing. A gasp rippled through the crowd. Tessa froze, her lemon bar halfway to her mouth. "We're adopting a beautiful baby girl," Sam said, his voice thick with emotion. "And," I added, placing a protective hand on my belly, "we're expecting." Dead silence. Then, chaos. Tessa blinked once. Twice. The lemon bar slipped from her fingers, hitting her plate with a soft thud. "You're adopting?" she said, her voice brittle, too loud in the stunned silence. "And expecting," I repeated, letting the words hang in the air. A ripple of murmured congratulations started among the family, cautious at first, then gaining momentum. Mom burst into tears, rushing forward to wrap me in a tight hug. Dad clapped Sam on the back, his eyes suspiciously glassy. Even Uncle Jim and Aunt May, hardly the emotional types, were grinning and nodding like bobbleheads. Everyone was moving toward us. Everyone except Tessa. She stood frozen, arms crossed tightly over her chest, her smile stretched so thin it looked painful. "Well," she said, laughing sharply, "isn't that something?" She moved toward me, heels clicking sharply against the hardwood floor. "You didn't think to tell your own family earlier?" she hissed under her breath as she leaned in for a mock hug. I hugged her back lightly, just enough to keep up appearances. "We wanted to be sure," I said, smiling sweetly. "You know how delicate these things can be." Sam stood tall beside me, his hand never leaving the small of my back. Tessa pulled away, her face flushed, her breathing shallow. For the first time in years, she wasn't in control of the narrative. And it was eating her alive. She tried to pivot, clinking her glass to get everyone's attention. "Let's not forget," she said brightly, "who the real mother of the year is." She turned it into a joke about her own chaotic household, about how she deserved a medal for raising 3 terrors. But no one laughed. Not really. The attention had shifted. Permanently. People weren't looking at her anymore. They were looking at me, at Sam, with real warmth, real admiration. And no amount of forced laughter or smug jokes could drag the spotlight back. Tessa smiled tightly, but I could see the cracks forming around the edges. She was unraveling, and I wasn't lifting a single finger to stop it. I didn't have to. All I had to do was stand there and let my joy speak for itself. And that was something she could never fake, never steal, never diminish. Not anymore. Sam squeezed my hand gently, giving me the silent cue we had agreed on. I took a deep breath and turned to the crowd, my heart soaring higher than it had in years. "There's more," I said, voice steady, eyes locked on the faces around the room. The family leaned in, curious, excited. Even Tessa, despite herself, tilted her head slightly, the last remnants of her smugness flickering with uncertainty. Sam cleared his throat. "We're not just expecting a baby through adoption," he said. "We're also expecting, biologically." Another wave of gasps. Hands flew to mouths. Tears welled in eyes. Mom actually dropped her glass, sending a spray of orange juice across the floor. Not that she noticed. She was already rushing forward, clutching my free hand, sobbing and laughing at the same time. "Claire," she cried. "Oh, sweetheart, after everything." Dad stepped in too, his strong hand wrapping around my shoulder, his voice rough with emotion. "I always knew you'd be a mother," he said quietly. "Always." Even the cousins, the ones who usually hovered at the edges of family drama, pushed forward with genuine congratulations. Hugs, hand squeezes, promises to help with baby showers and meal trains. The room pulsed with warmth, love, validation. And right there in the center of it all stood Tessa, stiff, silent, pale. For the first time in her life, she was utterly, painfully irrelevant. She tried to rally, tried to insert herself with a brittle, "Well, looks like Claire finally caught up." But no one laughed. No one even looked at her. All eyes were on me, and Sam, and the future growing right here, right now. I didn't gloat. I didn't smirk. I didn't need to. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming something Tessa could never touch. My joy, my family, my future. And I had built it with my own hands, my own heart, through every broken piece she thought would keep me down. I met her gaze across the room, held it and smiled. Not out of malice. Out of victory. The kind she would never understand. It didn't take long. Tessa held it together for exactly 15 more minutes. Just long enough for everyone to politely sip their coffee and start planning baby showers and nursery themes. Then she cracked. It started small. A too loud laugh here. An exaggerated eye roll there. But when Heather suggested throwing me a double celebration, one party for both your babies, Tessa's smile finally shattered. "Of course Claire gets 2 babies at once," she said, her voice dripping venom. It's not like she had to actually do anything for one of them. The room froze. a silence so heavy it felt like a physical weight pressing down on everyone. Sam stepped forward immediately, his voice calm but firm. "You don't have to stay, Tessa," he said quietly. "If it's too much for you." I watched my sister's face twist, 1,000 emotions flashing across it at once. Anger, shame, desperation. She looked around for support, scanning the room, but found none. Not this time. Even Mom turned away, pretending to adjust the flowers on the table. Even Dad crossed his arms and stared her down, his disappointment unmistakable. Tessa opened her mouth to argue, to cry, to claw back control, but no words came. She grabbed her purse off the counter, knocking over a vase in the process, and stormed toward the door. I didn't follow her. No one did. The front door slammed so hard the windows rattled. For a moment, there was only stunned silence. Then, a collective breath out. Relief. As if the entire family had been holding their breath for years and finally, let it go. Mom hurried over to me, pulling me into a hug so fierce I could barely breathe. "We're so proud of you," she whispered into my hair. "Don't ever forget that." I smiled, the last shreds of old pain falling away like dead leaves. Tessa had spent years trying to define me by my emptiness. But standing there, surrounded by love, cradling two futures in my heart, I finally understood. I was never empty. I was just waiting. And now, I was full. The days after the brunch felt like walking through a different world. Family group chats exploded with excitement. Baby name ideas, nursery themes, offers to babysit. Plans for 2 showers began almost immediately. One for the adoption, one for the pregnancy. Mom couldn't stop texting me articles about newborn care and baby carriers. Dad emailed links to tiny baseball mitts and storybooks he wanted to read to his future grandkids. Even the cousins, the ones who used to forget I existed at family events, were suddenly eager to include me in every conversation. And Tessa? Silent. No texts. No snide remarks. No half-hearted apologies. She disappeared from the family chat entirely for 2 full weeks, claiming she was busy with the kids when anyone asked. But I knew better. Tessa wasn't busy. Tessa was humiliated. And for once, it wasn't because I had fought her. It was because I had risen so far above her pettiness that she couldn't even reach me anymore. I didn't gloat. I didn't spread gossip. I didn't retaliate. I lived. I glowed. I grew. Every doctor's appointment, every nursery shopping trip, every tiny flutter in my belly was another reminder that the life Tessa said I could never have was blooming, lush and unstoppable. One afternoon, while folding impossibly tiny onesies in the nursery, I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror. I hardly recognized the woman staring back. She looked strong, whole, radiant. She looked like someone who had climbed out of grief and built a life from the ashes. Tessa's approval had once seemed so important, a prize I could never quite earn. Now I saw it for what it was. A mirage. A meaningless game I had finally walked away from. Sweet vindication wasn't about her. It wasn't even about the family finally seeing me. It was about me seeing myself clearly, fully, proudly, for the first time in years. And loving what I saw. The next time I saw Tessa was at Mom's birthday party, almost 2 months later. By then I was showing, not dramatically, but enough that there was no hiding the roundness beneath my flowy dress. Enough that strangers smiled at me in grocery store aisles. Enough that I instinctively rested a hand on my growing belly whenever I stood still for too long. Tessa showed up late, as usual, her smile brittle around the edges. She said hello to everyone, avoiding my eyes. Avoiding me. I didn't chase her down. I didn't corner her for an apology. I didn't need anything from her anymore. During dinner, she kept her distance, laughing a little too loudly at other people's jokes, clinging to conversations that didn't quite seem to hold her. It was like watching a star lose its orbit, once dazzling, now slowly fading into the background. At one point, I caught her staring at me, at the hand absent-mindedly resting on my belly, at Sam's easy arm around my shoulder, at the cousins huddled around me asking baby questions. She quickly looked away. There was a time when I would have twisted myself inside out trying to comfort her, trying to bridge the gap between us. But not anymore. Not today. Today, I simply smiled and turned back to the people who showed up with love in their hearts. The people who had always mattered more than I realized. Forgiveness didn't mean inviting Tessa back into the places she had abused. It didn't mean pretending nothing happened. It meant releasing her. Releasing the hurt. Releasing the need for revenge. Releasing the hope that she would ever be the sister I once wished for. By the end of the night, as we gathered around the cake and sang to Mom, I felt lighter than I had in years. Whole, strong, unburdened. Tessa would always be part of my story, but she would never again be the author. That role belonged to me, and the beautiful, messy, miraculous life growing inside and around me. A life no one could steal. A life I had built against all odds. And as I blew out the candles beside my family, I made a silent wish, one I knew was already coming true. Love wins. Always.
They say family comes first, but what happens when they're the ones holding the knife? If these stories hit close to home, hit subscribe and check out our other Savage Endings compilations. Because when the truth comes out, the real drama doesn't end, it explodes.